And joining us in Sydney is the fabulous and fierce Jacinta Price, who is getting standing ovations around the country on her speaking tour. Good afternoon, Jacinta.
Good afternoon, Rita.
Fantastic. And in Melbourne, we'll welcome back leading child psychologist Michael Carr-Gregg. Are you doing speeches around the country?
I am, but not as many as Jacinta.
You are as well. Am I the only one who's not on the speaking tour? I mean, I'm missing out. Jacinta, I read in Andrew Bolt's blog today that the Coffs Harbour City Council wanted you to get permission from the local Aboriginal people to enter the land when you hired a hall for your speaking tour. I mean, what is going on?
I really can't figure it out. I think it's political correctness gone absolutely bonkers to suggest that I have to seek permission to enter onto what is Australian land and that I should be, ensuring that there's a welcome to country at my event. I guess that would mean I'd have to fork out to pay for somebody, but I refuse to do any of those things, and I haven't done welcome to country because of the fact that it is not actually part of any kind of traditional culture. It's a modern construct. And I think Ernie Dingo is responsible for it.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, look, aside from this, I've had a raft of Gumbaynyi people coming out and, sending me messages saying this is ridiculous. Warren Mundine himself, our dear friend, Warren Mundine, he's Gumbaynyi himself, and he said that is so silly. You don't need permission. You're an Australian citizen.
Absolutely. Aren't we all citizens, regardless of whether you have an Indigenous background like Jacinta, whether you're Caucasian like yourself, born in here, or a migrant like me? Are we not all equal and Australians and we can go anywhere we like?
This smacks of cultural bullying to me. The other thing is I think it's quite sexist. On June the 20th, I spoke in Coffs Harbour, part of my speaking tour.
Were you asked to seek permission?
I certainly was not.
Oh.
And there was I think we were very respectful of the culture. There was a gentleman who did do a welcome to country, but he also gave us a 5-minute rendition on the history of the local people, and I actually found that quite informative.
Okay. Now, Jacinta, I understand some in the audience are quite shocked to learn about some of the customs that Indigenous women in your family and elsewhere have been through. Tell us a little bit about that. Your amazing mother, Bess Price, and I know she was touched by this. There was an arranged marriage organised for her, and she went to some extraordinary lengths to escape that. Tell us about that.
That's exactly right. And, I cop it all the time. I'm called a sellout for speaking about those elements of my culture that are detrimental for my people and particularly for women who are oppressed by it. For example, my mother was supposed to become the second wife in an arranged marriage to her older sister's husband. She was a teenager at the time and was expected to live in their camp and to take on a wife's apprenticeship, but she decided to rebel against her culture. And, when your culture does not uphold your human rights, you should have every right in the world to rebel and expect much better for it. And so I have been sharing a lot of these particular issues that have gone on within my own family and of course, my mother being directly affected by those cultural practices that are quite oppressive, with the view that we need to understand that we can't continue to romanticise culture, but we need to be very honest about what it involves so that we are upholding the rights of women and children.
Absolutely. And, it's the standards that a lot of these white lefties would never, ever expect and accept for themselves and their children, but they refuse to call it out when it's happening in another culture because they somehow think that's crossing a line. But if it's not good enough for you or your daughter, why shouldn't it be good enough for brown people like us? I find this also with elements of the Islamic community who want to, have girls covered up and have arranged marriages and have all sorts of customs that are fairly backward and detrimental to the girls, and you do not have the feminists calling it out, Jacinta, as they would if it was happening to them or their daughters.
That's exactly right. It's utterly hypocritical. And when you do try to reach out to these feminist types, they don't want to know about it. They don't want to hear about it. It's somebody else's culture, so it's too hardball. However, they bang on about human rights, and yet it's okay for the rights of Indigenous women and women who are oppressed within Islam to suffer because it's your culture or it's your religion, and therefore those who are privileged enough from the West to have had a feminist movement where bras were burnt and our rights were recognised and all that sort of thing won't go near the rights of women from ethnic minorities. And it's another form of racism, in my view. It's the real racism. It's one standard for them and another standard for those of us who live within the confines of our culture or our religion.